I love it. I love it. I love it. Look at this. This is the greatest thing I've ever seen.
Hey, I'm not surprised.
Hey, what's poppin', my homies? Hope you're doing well, feeling blessed, having a good day, having a good week. This one's going to be Taira versus Royval. Now, before we actually get into the breakdown, we're going to check my bets from last week, the pay-per-view, UFC 307. Now, guys, I had only 1.5 units on these bets. So I put 1.5 unit on Mario Batista, then I had 1.5 on T-Shirt, and 1.5 on Rocky. So yeah, some good units spread out on this card, and all of these fights, they're split decisions. We make half a unit, and you know, it's your opinion, guys, which ones of these are lost, which ones I actually won. I'm just lucky, you know what I'm saying? You need luck. In gambling, you need luck, and it went my way. All of them are splits. We get two. We make money. Now on Contender, last night, things were good again. Hey, Tuesday night fights, things are going our way. They really are. And we also had Cody still parlayed with a fighter on this card. So that ticket should probably win on Saturday night. And guys, by the way, on Saturday, we've also got boxing on the Patreon that we're going to bet. And we've also got Octagon, which takes place in a football stadium. We're going to bet that card. On my last Octagon card, we cashed that. Ronnie Paradisa, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, a lot of action on the Patreon this weekend. Alright guys, let's go. And guys, very quickly, before we get into the breakdown, if you see your name on the screen, you already know. You already know. That's money. That's pure money. Hey guys, let's do it again. Alright guys, let's go. Now guys, first matchup on the card, we've got Clayton Carpenter versus Rocha. And both these guys were signed to the UFC by way of the Contender Series. And I'd say, you know, both these guys are pretty good. They're not perfect. Obviously no fighter's perfect. But then again, if Dana White heard that claim, he's going to say John Jones is perfect. But here we've got a matchup between Clayton Carpenter and Rocha. So Clayton Carpenter, his jiu-jitsu, it's very decent. We saw that in his UFC debut when he quickly tapped Juan Camilo Ronderos. And I'd say there's potential again for Clayton Carpenter to find success with his grappling. Because if you look at Rocha on the Contender, his first round, you know, he showed grappling weaknesses in that first round. His takedown defense, it was pretty weak. His grappling was pretty weak. And I'd have to say, even against the fence, you know, clinching against the fence, it looked pretty weak. So I'm going to assume that Clayton Carpenter is thinking about imposing his grappling against Rocha. However, guys, Rocha likes to strike. He's looking to land fight-ending Muay Thai techniques. And after a horrible first round against Bittencourt, he finds a home for a perfectly timed knee. And as we know, the timing of a technique will forever do greater damage than the power of a technique. Speed kills, and so does timing, so does accuracy. And Rocha is pretty dangerous once he finds the timing. Now Clayton Carpenter on the feet, he's not too bad. He'll throw the calf kick, he'll throw the front kick. The boxing combinations, they're pretty powerful. Big left hooks, 3-punch combinations. However, I think his head movement, it could be better. There's times in the Chares fight where Chares is landing the jab, and then there's times where he's landing the jab and then following the jab up with the right hand. There's even a moment in the fight where Chares actually drops Carpenter to the mat. So defensively, there could be some improvements on the side of Clayton Carpenter. I'm going to side with Rocha. I'm going to side with the slight underdog. It's a close fight. It's a good fight. But I think, you know, if the fight starts to play out on the feet, if the defensive vulnerabilities of Clayton Carpenter start to show, you know, the lack of head movement, as I've been speaking about, if that starts to show, then the underdog Rocha, it may be a good pick. We'll see. That's the first pick on the card. Give me the Brazilian, Rocha. Moving into a matchup between Argueta taking on Cody Haddon. And I put money on Cody Haddon on week 2 of the Contender. And I've done that for a few reasons. Firstly, his boxing. His boxing is so good. It's technically beautiful. And there's power in the hands. The body shots are seriously powerful. The left hook upstairs. The jab. I was really impressed with the tape I was watching on Cody Haddon prior to that Contender Series opportunity. And then I saw Cody Haddon seize the opportunity by inflicting complete dustoration onto the opponent. And yeah, man, just a beautiful display of powerful boxing, beautiful technique and real power from Cody Haddon. And he's now getting the opportunity to make his UFC debut against an already UFC tested Argueta. And Argueta has excellent wrestling, excellent grappling, but that's his whole game. You know, if you look at his striking, there's holes in the stand-up. When he throws his punches, he throws his punches too wide. It's not tight, it's not sharp. He's throwing too wide. And against somebody like Cody Haddon, who's very technically sound with his boxing, against someone like that, you're going to be in trouble exchanging punches. So you've got to be careful if you're Dan Argueta. You've got to stick to what you're best at. And that's to, you know, wrestle the opponent, grapple the opponent. And Dan Argueta, in my opinion, is quite one-dimensional. And that kind of cost him against G Matsumoto. He got multiple takedowns on Matsumoto. But eventually, Matsumoto makes the adjustment mid-fight, makes the read. And the best move, the best read was to punish the opponent when you already know what the opponent's going to do. Just like in chess. Just like in chess, right? Matsumoto finally makes the read. Okay, he's going to shoot. And as he shoots, he attacks with a guillotine. You know, wraps up the neck. Now, guys, Cody Haddon does actually have decent jiu-jitsu. But it's about proving it now against someone that can actually grapple. Because, guys, if I was to ask you who has Cody Haddon fought that has the same level of jiu-jitsu, the same level of wrestling as Dan Argueta, who has Cody Haddon fought that can do that? The answer is no one. The answer is no one. So welcome to the UFC, Cody Haddon. The fights don't get easier. The fights only get more difficult. And against Dan Argueta, you're going to be challenging the wrestling and the grappling. So you've got to show that now. You've got to show people, look, my jiu-jitsu, it is good enough against someone like Dan Argueta. And I'm going to side with Cody Haddon. I think he's going to TKO Dan Argueta into round 2. As Dan Argueta starts to slow down. He uses so much energy in round 1. You know, he's a fast starter, 0 to 100. Instantly he's trying to grapple with the opponent, trying to wrestle with the opponent in round 1. And after 6 or 7 minutes of that intense grappling, he gets very tired. And obviously getting tired against someone who has the boxing like Cody Haddon, I can see a stoppage. So give me Cody Haddon to find a stoppage. I just think his boxing is very decent. That's the pick. So moving into a matchup here between Themba Gorimbo taking on Niko Price. And this is like old guard versus new guard. You've got Niko Price, who's a UFC veteran. He's been to the UFC Octagon 17 times. This will be his 18th time. So we've got a veteran on our hands with Niko. And so many times Niko Price has donated blood to the canvas. So many times he's given the fans exactly what they want. And that's pure violence, pure chaos. He's built different, is the hybrid. However, with all those wars comes aging of the body. Your reactions start to fade. You know, you get older. You become more hittable. And that's kind of when it's time to call it a day. You know, when you're getting hit so easily. You can't react to the damage coming your way. And it's a dangerous game to be in when you can't react, right? It's an unforgiving game. And Niko Price is defensively awful. He's always been defensively bad. He's had multiple knee surgeries. His footwork is stuck in the mud type footwork. But he does enjoy punching people in the face. He completely accepts you may land your best punch. He's a fighter that, you know, he's gonna offer violence to the octagon. He's gonna be in a fight where you're watching it thinking, this is a real scrap. This is a great fight. That's what Niko Price is all about. Now with Themba Gorimbo, he's a fighter that, you know, doesn't have the same experience as Niko Price. And we don't know if he truly enjoys to be in a war yet. We don't know. But we're going to find out against Niko. Because Niko, as I mentioned, he's always in a war. He's always offering blood to the canvas. And he wants to make you bleed. You know, he wants to be in a war. So we're going to find out, can Themba Gorimbo stay in a fight with someone that just truly loves to fight, Niko Price? We're going to find out. But here's my question. How good is Themba? How good is he really? Does he just walk through Niko? Because, you know, Niko's so hittable, but he's also so tough. He's also a veteran. So how does Themba win the fight? Does he just walk through Niko? I'm going to side with Themba, but I'm not going to completely sleep on Niko. Because like I say, he's a tough veteran and he's going to stay in the fight. And if Themba starts to get tired, if Themba starts to, you know, break down a little bit, Niko Price ain't going anywhere. You've got to stop that guy. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to side with Themba. So guys, moving into a matchup between Jonathan Pearce taking on Pat Sabatini. And the thing with Pat Sabatini, his chin is made of dust. His chin is so breakable. It's a chin that it's not made to be checked. You know what I'm saying? It's not like a reliable Nate Diaz type chin. It's quite the opposite. However, let's not spend time speaking about the striking of Sabatini or the defense of Sabatini or the weak durability, because this isn't where Pat Sabatini does well. If we're looking at, you know, the area that Pat Sabatini does well, it's his strong jiu-jitsu. He's a strong grappler, a strong wrestler. This is where Pat Sabatini does well. So avoiding the striking contest is what Pat Sabatini should be doing. You know, the moment Pat Sabatini gets his chin checked, it turns to dust. You know what I'm saying? Now on the flip side, JSP, Jonathan Pearce, he's a relentless wrestler. And I put money on Onama as an underdog. And I'd have to say, JSP, he done really well in that fight. Despite losing that fight, JSP was able to get multiple takedowns on the opponent. So guys, here we've got, you know, 2 grapplers. And who's the better grappler, right? We should pick the better grappler. So guys, in terms of jiu-jitsu, I'd say that Pat Sabatini is probably a better grappler than JSP. There's times where JSP, he'll kind of lay in the guard. And there's times where you can kind of reverse the position. So I think in terms of jiu-jitsu, I'd say that Pat Sabatini is the better grappler. He's the better jiu-jitsu player. But then you look at the wrestling, which probably goes to JSP. He's better at relentlessly bringing the opponent to the canvas. It seems like JSP is able to dominantly wrestle the opponent better than Pat Sabatini. Now guys, sometimes when you've got 2 grapplers, like a wrestler or a jiu-jitsu player, they kind of respect the grappling of one another, and then you get a striking matchup on the feet. Now if that was to be the case with JSP and Pat Sabatini, then again, I'm starting to, you know, get concerned with the chin of Pat Sabatini, because you don't have to be an elite striker. You don't have to be Edson Barboza. You don't have to be Alex Pereira to rock the chin of Pat Sabatini. You just have to throw the punch and land on the chin of Sabatini. And I think, you know, if JSP was to do that, he could rock Sabatini. He could drop him to the mat. I'm not saying that JSP is a big puncher. I'm not saying he's an elite boxer, a great Muay Thai player. He's more about wrestling, more about relentlessly wrestling the opponent. But if he was to strike with Pat Sabatini, I do think the chin of Sabatini is a concern against even people that aren't elite strikers. So even against JSP on the feet, I wouldn't be shocked if JSP dusted him on the feet. I wouldn't be shocked. I'm going to side with JSP. I think we get striking, wrestling and grappling. I think we get all aspects of mixed martial arts. And in that type of matchup, I'm siding with JSP. That's the pick. Moving into a matchup between CJ Vergara taking on Ramazan Temirov. And I don't know a whole lot about Ramazan Temirov. I've seen a couple fights. I see his most recent fight. And in his most recent fight, he got dropped in round 1. He actually got dropped. He got rocked. He got hurt in that round. But then he finds his own stoppage. He recovers from, you know, being rocked. And then he finds his own stoppage. Now on the flip side, you've got an absolute savage in CJ Vergara. A fighter that's not technical or not super technical, but he's more, you know, he's more about determination. He's more about toughness. He's more about cardio. He's more about, you know, proving that even though you're technically better, he's still there. He's still going to fight. And that's, you know, CJ Vergara. The guy's a dog. Now, I'm personally going to side with Ramazan Temirov. I'm not sure how much longer CJ Vergara is going to be in UFC. He's not, you know, technically really good. At the highest level of mixed martial arts, you do need a certain level of durability. You do need that. But you also need skill, man. You need to show, look, I'm fast with the hands. I'm clean with the hands. I'm really smart with my grappling. Really strong with my grappling. You know, you need technical skill. You need both. You know, you need both. And with CJ Vergara, I'm seeing more, you know, toughness. More of a dog. And obviously, you know, when the fight is slowed down, when you get midway into a fight and you're both tired, then it becomes less about skill and more about will, right? But for the first, you know, 7 minutes, 8 minutes, I'm seeing a guy that's kind of getting outmatched in skill. And that's kind of why I'm going to pick against CJ Vergara. Give me Ramazan Temirov. That's the pick. So guys, moving into a matchup between Chidi Njokuani taking on Gooden. And we're going to start with Chidi Njokuani. So if you look at Chidi's skill set, he absolutely loves to kick. You know, calf kicks, body kicks, head kicks. He's a really good kicker. But when it comes to his defensive wrestling and his cardio, he's not too good there. You know, he is breakable. But the question is, does Gooden have the skill to break the opponent? Gooden has, you know, the power to break Chidi. He's got decent power, but I'm not sure he's got the feints to trick Chidi. I'm not sure he's got the kicks to trick Chidi. I'm not sure he can really outclass Chidi Njokuani. And, you know, fighting is 90% mental. When you know your striking skill set is less than your opponent, it's not easy to outclass the opponent, guys. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like chess. Again, I bring chess into my breakdowns, right? When you're like 1000 ELO, if you play someone that's 1,200 ELO, you already know. You know they're better than you. You know they know the tricks and more tricks than you. And when you know that, when you mentally know that, it's like you're waiting for the board to show you, look, this person is better. You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of the case with this matchup. You've got Chidi and Njokuani, who loves to kick. He's technically very, very good at kicking. Then you've got Gooden, who does have power, and that power can break Chidi. If you land that power, if you translate that power to the chin of the opponent, you find knockouts, right? But it's setting it up. It's finding the right time. It's finding, you know, the chin of the opponent when the chin of the opponent isn't there to be found. You know what I'm saying? You've got to set it up. You've got to feint. You've got to trick the opponent, outclass the opponent. And it's not easy. It's not easy, man. And for Chidi, you know, he's not a good wrestler. He's not a good grappler. But neither is Gooden. Neither is Jared, you know? When have you seen Jared put on really good grappling performances? You've not seen it. So for Gooden to win the fight, land the power or just find a knockout. But then again, that sentence right there, just find a knockout. It's so much easier to say that, and then you go try to do that, and it's not so easy, right? I'm going to side with who, in my opinion, is technically better. I'm going to side with the kicker. I'm going to side with Chidi and Njokuani. That's the pick. Moving into a matchup between Abdul Razak Alhassan versus Josh Fremd. And here's the thing with Josh Fremd. For those of you that missed his last fight, he essentially showed us that his takedown defense is that of a newborn baby giraffe, right? His takedown defense is non-existent. And that's the newborn baby giraffe, you know? When it's born, it tries to stand up. And the moment it tries to stand up, it falls on its face. That's Josh Fremd. That's Josh Fremd trying to stop takedowns. Just non-existent takedown defense. And if you look at Abdul Razak Alhassan, this guy's a real powerhouse. He's an absolute monster. Or at least in round one. You know, 0 to 100, pure aggression the moment the ref says fight. However, the price you pay when you go 0 to 100 in round one is the cardio. The cardio doesn't hold up. And as we know, guys, fatigue will make a coward out of anyone. I mentioned it last week, or I think it was the week before. The biggest fear in fighting isn't, you know, what if my opponent knocks me out? What if my opponent, you know, breaks me? That's not the biggest fear. The biggest fear in fighting is what if I get tired? What if I'm the first one to get tired? Because as we know, once you get tired, you're stepping more towards defeat rather than victory. But then again, fighting is fatiguing. You know what I'm saying? Fighting is very fatiguing. And most of the time, you're going to see both fighters start to get tired. It's a very tough thing to do. You know, to resist the physical attempts of your opponent to break you down. And then to impose your physical attempts to break down your opponent. It's such a good game. Now, I'm actually going to side with Josh Fremd, the underdog. I'm not going to back this prediction financially, though. You know what I'm saying? Who's going to bet Josh Fremd? You know, who's going to do that? If you're picking Josh Fremd to win, then fair play. But, you know, it's kind of wishful thinking. Because if round one happens, and Abdul's, you know, very aggressive in round one, as he normally is, if Josh Fremd survives that round, theoretically, you should have a fatigued Alhassan going into round two. And if you've got a tired Alhassan going into round two, then Josh Fremd, you should start to take over. You know, start to land your punches, start to land your techniques, potentially find a sneaky submission against Alhassan. Because if Alhassan's tired, then you should take over. But there's also a concern that Josh Fremd, you know, he might get smashed in round one. He might get dusted in round one to the point where he's kind of fatigued himself. And if that's the case, which, you know, it could be the case, then, you know, Abdul being tired going into round two, it doesn't really matter because Josh Fremd is also, you know what I'm saying? So it's kind of wishful thinking for Josh Fremd to win the fight. If Abdul goes 0 to 100 in round one, Josh Fremd survives round one, it's still wishful thinking to assume that Josh Fremd is going to take over because his takedown defense isn't that good and he's quite breakable. You know, you're seeing that against Petrosky. The performance of Josh Fremd, it just wasn't good enough. And I'm going to side with Josh still. I'm going to side with Josh Fremd. I'm going to put some faith into the underdog. But I'm probably not going to back that. You know what I'm saying? I'm probably not going to financially back this prediction. But yeah, that's the pick. I picked no underdog so far. So yeah, this is going to be one of them. Give me Josh Fremd as the pick. If you waited to smoke with me, amen. You've been smoking this whole time, double amen. If you're not a smoker but you enjoy the smoke breaks, which, you know, we don't do often, but if you enjoy the smoke breaks, that's a triple amen gang. Let's go. Now guys, two things. The first thing, I watched a series recently, and this series isn't a new series, but I recommend it. I will recommend it. Queen's Gambit. if you haven't seen Queen's Gambit on Netflix, hey, check it out. You know a series is good after like episode 1. You've got to click episode 2. You know what I'm saying? And that was the case. I binge watched it in 2 days. You know what I'm saying? The Queen's Gambit, hey. If you like chess, actually no. Even if you don't like chess, watch the Queen's Gambit. That's a sick series. And the second thing I want to say is going to be somewhat controversial, but I'm going to say it anyway. Mario Batista, he did win that fight. He won that fight. He won round 1. He won the final round. Now, some people may say he didn't win the final round, but there's no damage on the side of Jose Aldo. He doesn't do enough damage in the final round to outweigh the control. And some people may say, well, what weight does that control have? There's no damage with that control. But the control does score, especially when the opponent being controlled isn't doing damage, right? There's no damage from Jose Aldo in the final round. There is damage in round 2, specifically at the start of round 2. You know, he's landing the jab. You can see the eye starting to swell up. But yeah, the first round and the final round, it's Mario. Mario won that fight. Alright guys, let's go. So Daniel Rodriguez versus Alex Morono, and this one's going to be a fun fight. So guys, Daniel Rodriguez, the form has kind of dropped. You know, his form's is kind of disappointing at the moment. Now, when he first got to UFC, his southpaw boxing, his sniper left hand, his sneaky good jiu-jitsu, that was all there to see. But his performances, they've kind of dropped as the competition has improved. You know, I think at times, his cardio is kind of dusty going into a final round. He's still a good fighter though. You know, make no mistake, Daniel Rodriguez, he's no walk in the park. But here's the thing. Alex Morono is also no walk in the park. You know, Morono's got a ton of experience, solid grappling, improved striking over the years. There's still holes in the stand-up of Alex Morono. Defensively, he's not the best. And at times, his cardio's kind of dusty. You know, you look at that fight against Niko Price. He didn't even look like he trained for that fight. Going into the final round, you know, Morono, the cardio, dusty. So I think both fighters do much better early in the fight rather than later in the fight. You know, Neil Magny, he stopped Daniel Rodriguez in the final round. Ponzinibbio stopped Alex Morono in the final round. Morono was exhausted in the final round against Niko Price, as I just mentioned. It seems like both fighters do much better in the first half rather than the second half. And I'd say that Daniel Rodriguez is technically sharper than Alex Morono. I know Morono's got a lot of experience. I know he's improved a lot over the years. He's a real student of the game. But I kind of expect Daniel Rodriguez to snap his losing streak. You know what I'm saying? I expect Daniel Rodriguez to go in there and show the opponent, look, you're a good boxer. I'm a better boxer. We've both got experience. We're both kind of, you know, in bad form. We're both in bad form. Someone's got to win though. Someone's got to win. And I think it's going to be Daniel Rodriguez. I think Daniel Rodriguez snaps the losing streak, finds a win against, you know, a good experienced fighter in Alex Morono. But I'm going to side with D-Rod. So moving into a matchup between Corey McKenna taking on Julia Polastri. And this one's going to be a good fight, a very fun fight. Now, with Corey McKenna, she's got a real understanding for jiu-jitsu. Her understanding with the grappling is at a very good level. You know, she understands the positions, the sweeps, all the grappling things you need to know. Corey McKenna does understand it. Now, she got submitted by Amorim, and I predicted that Amorim would win that fight as an underdog. And the main reason as to why I've done that is Amorim, you know, high-level jiu-jitsu, and Corey McKenna, she loves to grapple. So you put 2 and 2 together, and you find a submission win for the higher level jiu-jitsu player, which was the case. And Corey does understand the jiu-jitsu. It's arguably her strongest attribute. But Julia Polastri also had some nice grappling success in her last fight. Now, she didn't win that fight. It was a very close fight. But Julia Polastri, she did have her moments. You know, she was able to out-grapple the opponent here and there. But it wasn't enough, right? It's a split decision, a very close fight. But she found success at times. Now, looking at the stand-up, I think Corey McKenna, physically, she's not that good on the feet, right? She's not that tall. She hasn't got a massive reach, and she doesn't really have the striking skill set or the power to really cause Polastri problems on the feet. I think Polastri probably has the power advantage on the feet. If McKenna wants to win the fight, she's got to impose her jiu-jitsu, which at times, she kind of fails at doing. You know, you're looking back at the Elise Reed fight. She kind of lost that fight because it spent too long on the feet. You know, you've got to go into that fight and just, impose your game onto Elise Reed. And this was a few years ago, but it does show she's not able to, impose her game at certain times. And then she's, trying to grapple with Amorim, which that's not the time to use your jiu-jitsu. Not against someone that's, a higher level jiu-jitsu player than yourself. But she tries to grapple. So at times, it's almost like she should be grappling when she doesn't. And when she shouldn't grapple, she does. So it's kind of difficult to get an accurate read on what Corey McKenna's going to do. Now, in my opinion, she should grapple against Polastri. But at the same time, Polastri's, quite strong, quite physically strong. And there's going to be times where Polastri is able to break away from the fence, able to potentially work back to the feet. And in that moment, we're going to get back to the kickboxing. We're going to get back to the striking. And I don't really think Corey McKenna is going to find much success on the feet. I don't see her landing, big, powerful, damaging blows on the feet. I don't see it. I think if she wins the fight, it's a grappling masterclass, a grappling performance from the Hobbit, right? That's what she wants to do. On the feet, she's quite beatable, and I think Polastri does have that power. She does have that, physicality. And I think women's mixed martial arts isn't always decided based on technique. It's, decided a lot of the time on physicality. And I just kind of think, Julia Polastri is a little meaner than Corey McKenna. So I'm going to side with the Brazilian. I'm going to side with Julia Polastri in a very close fight. Very, very close. So guys, moving into a matchup between Grant Dawson taking on Rafa Garcia. And the betting line is suggesting we have a mismatch. And I'd have to agree. With the betting line. You've got a mismatch here. You've got Grant Dawson, who's actually a mauler, a super strong wrestler with smothering jiu-jitsu, just a powerhouse on the mat, just a powerhouse when it comes to the ground game. However, the IQ of Grant Dawson, it's not great. You know what I'm saying? He nearly got submitted early by Joe Selecki. But then again, does Rafa Garcia have the same jiu-jitsu as Joe Selecki? The answer is no. Does Rafa Garcia have the ground game to really challenge Grant Dawson? In my opinion, no. Then you're looking at Bobby Green, who stopped Grant Dawson very early with a jab, right? So does Rafa Garcia have the timing of Bobby Green? And again, I'd have to say no. So I'm kind of looking at this matchup thinking, how does Rafa Garcia beat Grant Dawson? Does he out-wrestle Grant? Probably not. Does he find, a sneaky submission? Joe Selecki's close. He's close in round 1. Does Rafa Garcia, go one step further than close? Does Rafa Garcia find a sneaky submission? The answer is no, in my opinion. Does Rafa Garcia start to, break down Grant Dawson on the feet, find a stoppage on the feet? I mean, that's like the only way he can win, really. He's not going to push him against the fence, beat him against the fence. He's not going to beat him on the mat. He's not getting takedowns. He hasn't got better jiu-jitsu, hasn't got better ground and pound. How does Rafa Garcia win? Sometimes the UFC put together matchups and I'm thinking one side here has so much chance to win. And the other side is like, how do you win? How do you, approach this fight? What do you do? Imagine you're Rafa Garcia. You're Rafa Garcia this weekend. You're going to fight Grant Dawson. You understand your grappling's not on the same level. You understand your wrestling isn't on the same level. How do you find success? Is the game plan to, try to just find a sneaky stoppage on the feet? Is the game plan to, hope that Grant Dawson again makes defensive mistakes on the feet and you're able to capitalize on that? I mean, it kind of seems unlikely. To me, it seems unlikely because Rafa Garcia, he's not that good. He's not that good in my opinion. He's a tough guy and he's there to fight. But yeah, man, Grant Dawson, with the grappling masterclass, again, the mauling, the ground and pound, the submission game. Grant Dawson, man, he's a powerhouse. And he's fighting, arguably down in competition. This isn't Joe Selecki with the black belt. This is Rafa Garcia. And Rafa Garcia's more, toughness. More about, staying in a fight when the fight gets tough. But I just think, it's not enough against Grant Dawson. You've got to be, elite somewhere. Or even looking at Ricky Glenn against Grant Dawson. That fight's a draw. And it's a draw because Ricky Glenn loses. He loses round 1. He loses round 2. And then round 3 starts. And Grant Dawson's so tired that it ends up being a 10-8 for Ricky Glenn. And I'm thinking, does Rafa Garcia potentially do that? Where he loses early, but then, finds a really good round later on. And then has like a draw or a split decision win. But I kind of doubt that still. I kind of doubt that. I'm picking Grant Dawson. That's the pick. So moving into the co-main event, we've got Brad Tavares taking on Jun Park. And I originally sided with the underdog in this fight, which is Brad Tavares. And I'm still going to side with Brad Tavares. Now, some people may say to me, Brad Tavares, he's not in his prime anymore. He's older now. He's taking more punches. You know, his defense, it's not that good. His durability, he's not taking the punches as well as what he used to. And I can't exactly disagree with anyone making those claims, right? But he's still a good striker. He's still got a bunch of experience. Now, Jun Park, the wrestling performances, you know, he can stand and trade. But look at his wrestling performances, you know, when he gets the opponent to the mat and he smashes the opponent with nasty ground and pound. That's what Jun Park likes to do. And if he does that to Brad Tavares in the co-main event, then all the credit. All the credit. His skill set is good, you know, boxing and wrestling and ground and pound. And even the submission game. Jun Park, very well rounded. But I kind of think Brad Tavares, he may be good to go. He may be. I'm going to side with Tavares. I'm going to side with another underdog. That's the pick. I'm moving into the main event where it's quite difficult to actually find a good prediction here. And a good prediction is typically the winner of the fight. And to find the winner here, it's not so clear. Now, guys, I've not picked against Tatsuro Taira yet. I think he's obviously a very legit prospect. A fighter that has a good skill set. You look at his grappling, it's very high level. You look at his striking, it's very dangerous. There's real power in the strikes of Tatsuro Taira. You know, he's mixing up his attacks really well. And his attacks, they're so powerful. There's real damage on the side of Tatsuro Taira. But the concern here, or the potential concern, would be the cardio. How does the cardio of Tatsuro Taira hold up against someone like Brandon Royval? Because we know that Brandon Royval literally won't stop throwing punches. We know that Brandon Royval has insane cardio. He's a cardio monster. He's throwing at a real high clip. The strikes, they don't stop, right? Round 1 to round 5. Brandon Royval, he's a cardio freak, an output freak. And we know that, you know, the judges can be impressed by that. When a fighter won't stop throwing, you know, strike after strike, the judges at times can be very impressed with the output. Now, some of you may say, well, hang on a minute. It's not about the output. It's about the impact of the connection. It's about the damage that you do to your opponent. It's about, you know, how much impact does it have when you find the target. Now, I would agree. You know, I would agree with that. But we still have to acknowledge that the cardio and output of Brandon Royval is a serious weapon. You know, let's say that Tatsuro Taira wins the first 2 rounds, right? He's able to get takedowns on Brandon Royval because Brandon Royval has 0 defensive wrestling. His takedown defense is really dusty. So let's say that Tatsuro Taira dominates for the first 10 minutes. But now he starts to get tired, right? There's been 10 minutes. There's been a lot of powerful strikes. There's been some grappling. And now he's 2-0 up. But now he's tired, right? Let's say that's the case. In that case, you could actually look at the next 15 minutes being minutes where, you know, Brandon Royval should get ahead on the scoring just based on having more to offer in the fight. If Taira gets tired, right, the offerings that you have in a fight also diminish. But guys, for me personally, I am going to side with Tatsuro Taira. I think, you know, the poor defensive wrestling of Brandon Royval, that's something that the Royval bettors could be concerned with or should be concerned with. And I think, you know, Tatsuro Taira just proving again how well-rounded he is. You know, the striking, the grappling. He's really effective in both realms. You know, on the feet, very effective, very powerful. We go to the mat and it's, you know, elite jiu-jitsu. This may just be a test of endurance and cardio, you know. And sometimes fighters who are really skilled, they do fail that test. You know, you can be so skilled in a fight, but then you come up against someone that doesn't have the same skill, but they've got, you know, insane cardio and they won't stop. Merab Dvalishvili against Sean O'Malley. That was a fight where one fighter is so technically gifted and the other one's just a cardio freak, an absolute monster. That's kind of what you've got here. You know, Brandon Royval, takedown defense of a newborn baby giraffe. He can't stay on his feet. Technically, Brandon Royval, I mean, he's not the most dangerous, right? But when you look at his cardio, when you look at his output, when you look at the fact that he won't stop throwing, and I know some people will say, look, a lot of his punches are landing on the guard. They're not connecting. They're not making real damage. But at times, like I say, the judges, they see that and they're like, look, he threw 40, 50 punches and the other guy's not doing as much. So you kind of score that. You score that for Brandon Royval. And it's, in my opinion, it's going to be a challenge where Tatsuro Taira, he is more skilled. He does have the skill, but do you have the cardio? Do you have the endurance? We're going to find out. I'm going to side with a Japanese prospect. Give me Tatsuro Taira. Let me know you're taking in the main event, the co-main event, your straight bets, your parlays, your doubles, your Money City bets, all that good stuff. Drop it in the comment section below. And as always, keep your eyes to the sky and never glued to your shoes. Peace.